It happens so often where you pitch something that you really like, you're like proud of it. You're like, because I know I stayed up and I like really tried to tinker with that until it felt really, really solid. And it's kind of like this long sequence where they're flying and they're talking about their feelings and it's like really heartfelt. And then yeah, and then JG's like, nah, it'll work better if you just keep that super quick.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another regular show Wiki interview. Today's guest originally joined the series as a storyboard artist on season 5, boarding 20 episodes from then up to the finale. He has since returned for regular show The Lost Tapes, where he has boarded the episodes so far Skips Luau, Coffee Shop Wars, and Stilt Walkers. Everybody, please welcome Ryan Pequin.
Hello, how you doing? 20 episodes. That's a lot of regular show I've done.
More than 20 episodes as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be more than 20, right? It's like, yeah, I must be in the mid 20s at the very least at this point. That's a lot.
Well, we'll start from the very beginning. I'm curious to know what was it going back that initially got you interested in working in animation?
Oh my goodness. Well, I always loved animation. I mean, let me think. What was my like yeah, I grew up watching Disney like everybody. Um The Simpsons was an absolutely vital part of my childhood. It was like truly one of the most formative things that I think I experienced as a young guy. I'm actually rewatching early Simpsons right now, and it's crazy how much it's like bringing back insane memories of just being a child and not really necessarily even understanding the jokes that I was witnessing, but just knowing that I thought it was funny anyway, or I I knew it was funny to someone. So I loved it. I have a Matt Groening tattoo of one of his characters from Life in Hell on my arm. It's just like, yeah, I think it helped build my entire sense of like at least my sense of humor, but probably like a good chunk of my sense of just like identity. Um, and then I've always loved animated comedy. So I think just like as a kid, I always wanted to do something creative. I always wanted to be funny. And so but I never like saw that for myself as a career. I didn't understand that that was even something I could do. And then comics also I think probably really like contributed to my love of that kind of stuff. It feels like it lives in the same sort of vein, same universe. I grew up collecting Superman comics. And made comics myself in my 20s and still do. So I think that all I always loved drawing. I didn't really try writing until I was in my 20s, but I think I always wanted to do something that was like that existed in that area. So yeah.
It's funny, there seems to be some sort of tradition now in this interview where I'll always just pull something out from the side. um, I can't do that right now because what I want to pull out is surrounded by other things and it's just going to create a huge mess. Um, I was just going to say I've got like the first, I think, 13 seasons of The Simpsons like right here.
You went up all the way up to 13.
The
Nice.
rest, I mean, I would have bought the rest as well, but they are for some reason a lot more expensive to get.
Really? Are they still putting out DVDs of the newer seasons?
I think they stopped at like 20 or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Digital media just or physical media just sort of died around that time. I was wondering, like, could you have a whole bookshelf full of just Simpsons DVDs?
I feel like you could have a big bookshelf, but like half of them would be official, the others would be
Yeah,
bootleg.
yeah. If you make them yourself, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, if you can't buy them physically, I don't see any problem with that. Did you grow up watching The Simpsons? I mean, I have to assume it's a big thing for you if you've got that much of it.
Honestly, I mean, I think I was a bit of a late bloomer with that. Um, I was growing up in the 2000s, so we weren't.
Right.
I mean, it obviously it's The Simpsons. It is one of the biggest things of all time. But for me, honestly, thing I mostly remember is the movie.
Really? Oh, wow. That's so. That's such a generational difference right there. I mean, the show came out in 89. I was born in 84. I'm old as hell. So that's funny. I had like 20 years of The Simpsons before the movie even came out, basically. So, oh, that's crazy. That's really interesting. So I guess you grew up with more regular show or Adventure Time and like those kinds of cartoons more than
When I think about like growing up, I would pivot to like the more earlier Cartoon Network stuff. Um, and then eventually I came back and was like, oh, regular shows like this really cool show. And it was the reason I stuck around with Cartoon Network for quite a few more years.
yeah, that's fair. That's funny. The older stuff, every Uber I've ever taken is has been someone telling me to personally bring back Dexter's Laboratory or one of those old shows. They're like, it was funny. Every ride would be like, they'd be like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'd be like, "Oh, I work in cartoons. I work on the show called Regular Show." They're like, "Oh, yeah, that's Cartoon Network." And then would always be like, "You guys should bring back Johnny Bravo." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree."
I remember even when I was like in school, and everybody knew I was kind of obsessed with regular show. Um, but some people, for some reason, couldn't differentiate between regular show and Adventure Time.
Oh yeah.
So they'd be like, "Oh, is this for the little Adventure Time art piece that you're doing?" I say art piece; it would have been just been me getting all my friends to draw the characters on a piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I'm like, "Yep, that's Adventure Time." Mordecai and Jake.
They they definitely feel like sister shows to me. I mean, they came out around the same time, if not the same time. I actually don't know now that I think about it, but yeah, and I did a little bit of work on Adventure Time before I worked on regular shows. So yeah, yeah, yeah. My humble beginnings were doing revisions for a couple of Adventure Time episodes.
Well, that's a kind of perfect gateway into the next question on how did you eventually get into the industry?
Yeah. So yeah, I went to school for a long time, just kind of trying mostly just avoiding the real world, I think. I took fine art first and then I quit that because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Which is no insult to fine art. It was just I think my mindset was not in the right place for that sort of thing at the time. And then I changed into English. I took an English. I took like 3 years of an English major and then realized I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I'm glad I took it, but I definitely had a bit of a like career crisis where I was like, I don't want to be a like an English professor. So uh, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. And then a friend of mine and I joined this illustration and design program in Vancouver at Capilano, and I did eventually finish that. And I thought. Um, Honestly, I think what I thought I was just going to try to do for the rest of my life was be like an editorial illustrator or something like that. Like essentially just work in illustration and find freelance work or whatever. And then I had been making this comic called Three Word Phrase for a few years at that point. I think I started in like 2008 or 9. And it had gotten an okay amount of traction online. A few of my comics had been turned into like memes and things, and so people knew about it. And that was the first thing I ever did that was kind of like comedy forward, where I was like, okay, I guess I'll write some jokes. I'd been way too scared to try to be funny before that until a friend sort of like literally, not sort of, literally dared me to write uh comedy comics. And I did it just because like we were just goofing around and talking on what like I don't even remember, Google Chat or something like that. And I put those up on my live journal and people liked them. So I was like, okay, well, as soon as like the instant someone responded positively to me writing jokes, I was like, well, this is what I'm going to try to do for the rest of my life. I don't know how exactly, but like I wrote a comic about a guy who was nervous. My friend was like, "Here, you're gonna make a funny comic, and I'm gonna give you the idea." And he just said, "Make a comic about anxiety." So I made a comic about someone who had sweaty hands, and then the president starts throwing babies at him, and he's worried he's gonna drop them. That's literally the premise of the entire joke. And yeah, and it got I mean, it probably got 5 likes on LiveJournal or whatever, but that just triggered enough dopamine in my brain that I was like, okay. The fact that people are not chasing me out of town with pitchforks after I tried to be funny means I'm going to do this forever. And then at a certain point, JG, this is years later, JG was looking for a new board artist, and Toby Jones recommended me, and I think Calvin Wong also. I've heard that they both kind of had the same thought, which is very kind of both of them. They recommended me to JG, and I guess he read through my comics and didn't think they were terrible. And I got an email asking to do a board test for the show. This is in 2013, I guess. And I mean, up until around that time, I had done a couple of little things in animation before that. Like I had done some revisions for Adventure Time at that point. And I had done some tests. I did a test for Sanjay and Craig that I didn't get. And I think I was in the middle of doing a test for a show called Fish Hooks, but that I don't think lasted much longer. Like I think it got canceled before I even handed in the test. But JG liked my stuff, and I did a test for the show. And it's funny because I was just coming off of a failed test for something, and so I was feeling like crap, to be completely honest. And I actually think that's part of why I got the job, is because I was so like I didn't go into it thinking there was any chance I would get the job. I remember specifically being like, there's no there's no possible way I actually get this. So I'm going to write whatever I want in the show. Like I think normally I might have gone in and like if I hadn't just failed a test previously as a board test, I might have gone in trying to like really trying to be too careful maybe, or trying to be a little bit like too precious with my jokes, or like really really try and get exactly the tone. But like instead I was just like, nah, I'm just gonna write whatever I think is funny. It's gonna be stupid as hell, and it was. Um, I don't, have you talked to anyone who's done a test? Do you know the scene that they had everyone do back in like
Yeah.
around that
I
time?
also, I'm pretty sure I've seen yours.
Oh, really? Well, that makes sense. Yeah, for anybody else, it was the scene in I'm not gonna remember the name of the episode, but where Rigby and Mordecai are drinking slushies and seeing what their faces do when they get brain freeze, and then Thomas I think gets like, so I did that and I just kind of winged it. I put a bunch of really dumb jokes that I thought were funny in there, and JG liked it. And so yeah, I got an email asking me to move to LA like a week later, which I couldn't do. It took me almost a year to actually make my way to LA because I did not have a degree. And to move to another country, they require a lot of things of you. So we had to go through some legal stuff to get me down to LA. But yeah, basically it was like giving up got me the job to some degree, because I think it just made me like uh I was willing to just go with my gut instead of thinking too hard, I guess is how I would put it. Yeah, and then in 2014, I moved my butt down to LA, and I actually moved into Penn Ward's old apartment in Los Feliz, which is like not even his old apartment, his old room, um, which was hilarious. And I lived there for a good long while I worked on regular show.
Well, one thing I am curious about, something that you tweeted many years ago now, and I'm quoting you here. I genuinely believe that I snuck the dirtiest joke of the entire series into regular show.
Hmm.
And for a long time, that's really bugged me as to what joke was that. Are you able to disclose?
You know, I it's only here I'm not going to tell you what joke it is, but what I'll say about it is this. It's only really dirty to me because I had a specific thing in mind. I think when I was writing it, it was a little snippet of conversation that you hear offhand that's not even it's not even a punchline to something. It's literally just two characters are talking before Mordecai and Rigby walk in the room and they're just kind of like chit-chatting. And in my brain is something very dirty, but there's no real, I'll say this, there's no real way to it's not that suggestive of something actually dirty. But I remember when I was writing it, I was tired. It was probably 4 in the morning, and I was just like, that's fine. And I'll change this later, is what I was thinking. And then no one else thought it was the thing that I was thinking of. And so I was like, okay, well, and I think I should probably keep it a secret. I can tell you what episode it's in. It's it's the episode they're in space at the time, and it's the episode where Mordecai. Oh man, what's the Mordecai and Rigby are trying to? Oh yeah, they're Sorry, I don't know. I don't remember the names of any episodes to ever exist. By the way, that's a Toby thing for sure. Um, Mordecai and Rigby are trying to catch the ending, the series finale of a TV show, and they're trying not to get spoiled, and Benson tries it gets mad at them and starts trying to spoil the episode for them because they're not doing chores. They're supposed to vacuum or something like that, I think. That's the episode. But beyond that, I'm gonna keep that one to myself. I can tell you off the record maybe, but aside from that, I'm keeping that one close to my heart because it's funny to me that no one knows what I'm talking about, also, to be honest with you.
It's Operation Hear No Evil is the episode.
That's the episode. Yeah.
There's four episodes in the original series which are just entirely accredited to you,
Hmm.
with no other board partners. Um, so I'm just kind of curious, like, what was the reasoning behind that, and also how did you sort of find that not only having to board them, but like obviously pitch episodes entirely by yourself?
Oh my God, it was am I allowed to, can I swear on this, or I'll stay PG. It was horrifically stressful. I'll say that. I think I have the most solo boards in the history of the show. I think Drace has a couple, and I mean, I'm sure JG has a couple, but I think I have the most. Um, if I remember right, the reasoning behind pretty much all of those was probably that we had lost a board artist. Can't recall who, and I can't recall when, but either someone was on vacation or someone was gone. And my name was up next in the schedule for episodes, and I think they were just like, I do remember the first one I did, I was still working remotely. I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia at the time. And I tried to I didn't really understand how schedules worked, so I did try to ask for like a 10-week schedule to because it's twice as much time. I'm writing twice as much and I'm boarding twice as much. I did not get 10 weeks to do the entire episode. But I think at one point I even volunteered. I volunteered for one of them. I know that for a fact. I think just because I don't know, maybe I needed it was a little bit of extra money, and so maybe that was why. Um, but the man, it's funny. It was super stressful, but I do know that they were quite um they were kind about my thumb and crew pitches, obviously, in terms of how clean they were, how, like I think some of them probably had empty panels that I was just pitching like what was happening in the boards just because it's so much drawing. It's like, you know, 800 panels or something like that at least of just like stuff. I remember like California King almost killed me. I do remember boarding that at like 5 in the morning with a pitch at like 10 that day. And just, I think I might have been crying while I was boarding it. It's very possible. It was like, I also had, I'm better at this now, but I've always been a bit of a procrastinator. I like to I like to think about what I'm gonna do before I do it. And back in the first the first round of regular show, I was quite bad about that. So there's more than one board for sure that I did the entire thing the day before. Like I drew and wrote the entire thumbnail pass the day before it was due. And I know that California King was one of those ones where it was like I remember looking at the clock and just thinking like, there's no shot I'm getting any sleep before I pitch this. And I don't know if you've ever had to pitch anything. I don't get stressed about it anymore, but at the time I was quite new, and it was kind of the scariest thing in the world to stand up and pitch my stuff. And when you're doing that with no sleep and no like emotional armor anymore, it's it's very it's not a pleasant experience. I definitely remember just like flop sweating. I used to have to wear my I had a regular show hoodie, and I would wear that over my t-shirt because I would be sweating so bad down my sides that I didn't want people to get distracted when I was pitching my hilarious jokes. But yeah, I can't I don't specifically remember why I ended up getting those episodes. I think it was honestly just scheduling stuff. I don't think it wasn't like, hey, Ryan's the there was nothing special about me, certainly. I think I just had the time to do it and was willing to take on that bit of extra work. Um, I'm proud of those episodes though. Benson's Suits, like to this day, one of my favorite things I ever did. I love that episode so much, and like I like I could genuinely say I think I poured my sweat, blood, and tears into that one. And I'm very proud of that.
It suits.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny you mention about California King. Um, in the last interview that we did was with Cheryl Johnson, who obviously is the assistant art director on the new series, but
Mhm.
it's some backgrounds for California King.
Oh,
She
really?
basically said the reason for that was that there was so many backgrounds, and I was like, actually thinking about that episode, there is a lot because it's changing environments a lot, obviously, for the labyrinth.
My apologies to her because I wasn't trying to keep it. I was certainly it was not in my mind to keep it economic either. I'm sure I was just winging it at the time. Well, and the backgrounds were pretty like it's not just like houses and streets. It's like this huge dump full of stuff. Like everything is its own. Yeah, that's oof, that must have been a rough one. There's a lot going on. Uh yeah, my apologies to her for that.
But yeah, I mean, on what you were saying, like especially Benson's suit, I can remember when that came out, and you know, I don't usually like to get negative in the interviews, especially because I genuinely do like every episode.
Hmm.
But I know that generally the fan consensus was people were getting a bit annoyed by season 6, I think, with the whole love triangle.
Oh my God, are you kidding? Oh my dude, I boarded the scene that probably is the most hated scene in all of regular. I say hated. Hey, people were getting frustrated with Mordecai and his poor decision making is how I would put it, which is okay. So can I ask, is that the direction you were you leading towards that, or am I jumping the gun here?
I was just gonna say that I remember, despite that Benson's suit, people were like, "Oh my god,
Okay.
regular show's so back."
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's awesome. Dumped at the altar. I was the one who boarded and wrote the scene where Mordecai like hijacks the wedding. I understand people being frustrated with Mordecai as a character, and his decisions and stuff, but I also fully stand by, like Mordecai is a flawed person. Rigby is is a very flawed character as well in many different ways. They just have their own different ways of being messed up. And I think giving Mordecai this wishy-washy kind of man-child arc made people upset with him. But it's funny because I think they're upset with him like he's a real guy. Like I can understand that. Like if that's your friend, you're like, why can't he get his shit together, right? And it is funny to me whenever I see criticism of that stuff. It's like either they really wanted him to get with Margaret or CJ, and they're frustrated that he didn't get either of those things. Or they just think like, why can't Mordecai kind of like get like do the right thing? But I mean, that's funny storytelling, man. It's it's funny to have a character who is flailing around and trying his best and failing miserably. I think it makes sense to mess with him, to give him some real like stupid moments where he's got to have hurdles and he's got to fall over those hurdles, but it does make me laugh. every time because at the time I didn't think twice about what was going on in that episode. I just thought that, oh yeah, that's funny. He's hijacking the wedding. He's being a real dick. Like it's in my mind, I was just like, yeah, this is great. And then you see to look back at the fan response and how often Dumped at the Altar is like people are like really mad at Mordecai for doing that. I'm like, oh man, I did not see that coming in the slightest bit. I was just writing funny stuff or trying to. But yeah, yeah,
And people are still talking about that today. And I mean, funnily enough, when we're recording this now, I'm pretty sure tomorrow is the 11-year anniversary of that episode.
wow, really? 11
It's like it's
years.
been 11 years. Get over it.
Well, it's funny though. I mean, again, it's good. It's good for the show because when you think about it, like so much of the conversation, like I follow the Reddit, I read the stuff. I not all of it, but every now and then, and so much of the conversation from fans is like, who was worse, Rigby or Mordecai? Who did this more than this, Mordecai or Rigby? Like who was a better character? Who was more morally right? And I think like y giving them all these crazy things really gives the it's good drama, I guess is the way that I would put it. Even if it did make people annoyed with him or you know, yeah, a little frustrated with our man, but people are still talking about it. Like people get very invested in uh in Mordecai's decision making, which I think is great.
Another thing from the original series, I kind of just wanted to touch a little bit on was obviously you boarded for a number of different specials. I'm going to say most notably purely because I don't think we've spoken to anyone about this episode yet. So I'm going to say for the real Thomas, which is a really
Oh yeah.
it's interesting because that episode's had a life of its own since it came out. Because as I'm sure you know, there's like bajillion different versions of this episode.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually don't know much about that. I know that it has been updated to be more accurate, certainly than the one that we put out at first, accurate to the real world. I know we we didn't do maybe the amount of research we were supposed to. Um yeah, I mean do you have any thoughts on the sort of like the I mean I would say controversy a little bit like there was controversy with the fans about Thomas as a character and like what had happened to him or the reveal. But then it was also like I actually got the only piece of I would call it fan mail, actual mail, an actual letter, and it arrived at Cartoon Network, and someone walked to my office and handed me a letter that was addressed to me about that episode. I didn't know it was about that episode. I was like, oh wow, this is great. I got fan mail. I've never gotten real fan mail in my life. So I'm like in my office at the old Cartoon Network building, and I open it up, and I want to say, I can't recall exactly, but I think it's from a little kid who was from Russia. And it's essentially the whole letter is like, how could you do this to me? It's like, this is not accurate. Russia's not evil. We're not, it's like, how could you, why did you show Russians as being like bad guys? Like, and it's like, it was a truly heartfelt letter about how we had like painted the the Russian government or whatever as being evil. And I was like, it's funny because it's not really Russia, right? It's Russia from the movies. It's Russia from like a 1980s goofy like like action movie with like Steven Seagal or something like that. But at the same time I do understand like being frustrated with it. But we were not considering the actual geopolitics of the world at the time that we were making that episode. You know what I mean? That was me and Calvin Wong, if I remember correctly. Um, and we were just writing like a goofy 80s movie. You know what I mean? Like that's please understand, this is regular show. Everything is kind of a parody of a goofy 80s movie. We're I promise you, we are not making any kind of comment politically about any actual place, any real people. Uh, so yeah, I can understand if you were like, if you're from that place and you see that, it might not feel the best, but it's a cartoon version of it. It's certainly not, you know, but yeah, we did get some stuff wrong in that episode that I'm a little embarrassed by looking back. But um yeah.
It's just the thing that was crazy to me because I'm not sure how aware you are, but here in the UK, we would get um, slightly altered versions of episodes where they were more maybe age appropriate for slightly younger audiences.
Okay.
And I just remember when we got that episode, obviously I had already seen the original version, uh, and just being completely shocked because I think it's like the most censored episodes.
So what did they censor? What's missing or what changed? I'm so curious. I haven't seen it, so I haven't seen the censored version.
Because every instance of Russia is changed to Druzhnia.
Okay. Which honestly, probably what we should have done in the first place, if I'm being honest. But
But then there's just some other things like for some reason they got really like nitpicky with like oh characters can't get punched.
oh
So
wow.
there's a point where Natalia punches Rigby in the face and they change that to just like pushing
Oh,
him
they reanimated it, really? Because I know sometimes they would like some places would just like put like a flash on the screen so you don't actually see the punch, but they've actually changed it. So okay, that's interesting. That's a bummer to me. I mean, it's like he's a cartoon raccoon. Like we don't have to be that careful about it, but yeah. Oh, wow. Did they do that with everything? Was UK kids TV just like super tame for you growing up?
um I mean honestly it was the only time I initially noticed it was with regular show, and I think it's because the rest of regular show does have a very adult tone anyway.
Yeah, right. And it had already been kind of toned down by that point. Like it started out even more adult than that.
Because I
Hmm.
remember I don't know, I saw a clip on YouTube of Mordecai saying "You've pissed me off," uh, and then when I saw it on TV, he didn't say that, so I was like, "Do we get a different
That's not
version?"
even just you guys. That's everywhere. I think at a certain point, I think at a certain point, just standards changed, like or even just like the age range that regular show was being maybe marketed to, changed a little bit because I think over time it did age down ever so slightly. I think like you couldn't say pissed now. Yeah, there's a couple different ones. I don't think like Rigby doesn't say how in the H are we gonna fix this S anymore. I don't think. I think it's something else. Um, they're little. You probably don't have like the wizard pissing in the bush. There's a few things that I think just sort of disappeared over time, just uh everywhere. I don't think that was just a UK thing, but um, I remember the first time I watched the pilot where he says you pissed me off or things like that. I was like, oh wow, like I was shocked. I mean, I'm shocked at what we get away with now, but language wise, they're still pretty careful, I think. Yeah. But we can still murder people.
One thing, obviously, the people listening or watching this won't know this, but I did message you a few months back to be like, "Hey, what shorts did you
Oh
storyboard?"
yeah.
I remembered there was one thing I forgot to ask, which kind of in the same realm as that.
Mhm.
Basically, I have no idea which part you did in Christmas in Space, if you remember that.
Is that the one where they do the 12 um um they sing the carols? The guy comes in with the
Yeah,
I did that scene. I did the short where they're visited by like a rock and roll guy with a guitar and he starts singing the what is it, the 12 something of Christmas.
12
What's
Days of
that? 12
Christmas.
days. I was gonna say the 12 months of Christmas. The 12 days of Christmas. Can I say that that was a nightmare to board? That just because I mean I think at some point Rigby says something like, "Why are there so many birds in this song?" Because like birds are flying everywhere and attacking everybody, and that's me saying that because I was just like, "What?" I was trying to board this thing out, and like half the song is just birds, and I'm like, "How do you have eight different kinds of birds attacking everybody and like just filling the friggin' house up with birds?" So it was sort of driving me insane trying to figure out how to stage an epic battle sequence with like a bunch of like pheasants basically running around. Um yeah, I don't remember exactly why but I remember really struggling to get that one to a place where I liked it. It was and then of course I pitched it and everyone was totally fine with it, but I was like I was sweating over that one. But yeah, that's the one I did for the Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas in Space is I feel like quite a underrated gem. And I think I understand because it came out in the midst of like this huge story arc with Pops and everything.
Yeah.
Um, but like I would happily put that on every Christmas.
A Christmas classic. That and Rudolph. Um Yeah, I like that one. I like that I like that Benson loves bells. He's a big bell head. That was my I think that was my favorite joke in the whole thing. It's just that he says like I'm not gonna get the line right, but he says something like that the bells sound like angels whispering and he's like but he says it really angrily. He's like mad. He's like, and don't you forget it. I don't remember if I wrote that line, but I do. It always makes me laugh. Yeah. That's the stuff I always love in these episodes is like the little things that that you throw in that you just think are funny for yourself that have nothing to do with the rest of the entire episode. Uh Benson being obsessed with Christmas bells is just funny to me.
The last thing specifically on the original series that I want to mention is, of course, you worked on the finale. Do you remember which parts of the finale you did and kind of what was that experience like closing off on the show?
I mean, I did essentially the end of the show. So the sequence that I boarded in the finale is from where Anti-Pops is starting to sort of erase everything. And so they're in space. Anti-Pops is shooting his beams at stuff, erasing everything. I did the sequence where the show devolves into the component parts of a cartoon. So it's like I did the sequence where the post-its come in and they like Sweet pops away, and then Mordecai and Rigby turn into, you know, board drawings with the text underneath and stuff. Um, Pops is flying through the regular show title card stuff. And I did the sequence at the end with Pops and Anti-Pops flying into the sun and the whole like which is funny I want to say I wrote that whole like speech, but I forget sometimes that like I had Pops and Anti-Pops. That scene lasted a lot longer in the version that I originally pitched. Pops had a lot more to say. I think they had like a little more of a little chat. And then I remember I think I was almost certainly just JG who was like, nah, just have him say like three things. He just says this and that, and then, you know, and then he hugs him, and then they fly. And I was like, yeah, I was like reluctantly like, it happens so often where you pitch something that you really like, you're like proud of it. You're like, because I know I stayed up and I like really tried to tinker with that until it felt really, really solid. And it's kind of like this long sequence where they're flying and they're talking about their feelings, and it's like really heartfelt. And then yeah, and then JG's like, nah, it'll work better if you just keep that super quick. And I'm like, and the thing that happens so often when you're boarding and pitching, especially, is you have to be like reluctantly like, yeah, that is actually better. You're right. Like it hurts your feelings, but it is for the better of the show. But yeah, I did that, and then so I don't think I did the very like I think it was it Sam Spina who boarded like the very end with like all the new park members and stuff. But I did the bit where the dome comes back to Earth and for whatever reason this sticks out in my mind as something I'm so happy I got to do. But like when Rigby kisses Eileen in front of everybody, and like because I see that image. Like if you look up Rigby and Rigleen, I got to do a bunch of Rigby and Eileen stuff that, and I'm really happy with that actually. Like that's some of my favorite stuff in the show is just their relationship. Eileen is like my favorite character in the show, I think. So, but yeah, I got to do that. Um, I think that was I think up to about that point. Yeah, and then I think Sam did the like ending with the rest of, heroes and stuff. But yeah.
I just remember um, that was a really special occasion for me because not only was it the final episode of regular show, as far as we knew back then, was the first time I was able to watch an episode at the same time as it coming out in the US. Basically, somebody posted on Reddit, like, hey, I'm going to be live streaming Cartoon Network on Discord. So I created a Discord account for that reason.
The statute of limitations is probably passed for that. I think you're fine. I think you're okay. So you were watching it with other people? Like, was there like a chat and stuff, or was it
Yeah.
just like you and, oh, that's really cool.
And I just remember I stayed up super late to do that. And then I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. And I had school the next day.
Oh, wow.
So I remember going to school and telling everyone, like, dude, you've got to track down the regular show finale. It's like amazing. And then I just remember I went home that day and I just absolutely bawled my eyes out.
Oh no. I mean, that's very sweet. Aw, just for the something you loved being over, or yeah, the ride.
I think I was just very upset about Pops.
That's fair. That's fair. We discussed. I remember there being discussion of whether he should stay dead or not, for sure. And the overwhelming consensus was, yeah, he had to stay dead to make the story really mean as much as it possibly could. But we knew it was like we were taking a swing for sure. That's funny. Yeah.
A few years later, I showed one of my younger cousins regular show, and I had to fabricate a story afterwards so that he would be okay with the fact that Pops was dead. So I was like, well, whenever you look into the sky and you see the sun, that's Pops. Just remember, Pops is living inside of there.
Oh, he's up in regular heaven. I mean, like, which we have now. Well, we kind of revealed that at the end of the first series, right? He's watching the yeah. I'm already worrying about what I'm allowed to say, but yeah, we lead into the lost tapes concept a little bit at the end, um, which of course we knew the whole time that we were gonna do this 10 years later. It was all part of the plan.
I want to touch a little bit on the in between, just some of the other things you've worked on in the meantime. I know you've been on Summer Camp
I was
Island.
on Summer Camp Island. I was on Infinity Train. I was on, I mean, right after regular show, I was on Close Enough, which was a super interesting experience because it was like, our attempted foray into like adult comedy, which was a whole new kind of thing. It was interesting. Um, I have very fond memories of Close Enough, but it was also stressful because it was my first time being on the first season of anything, like the actual like kind of development part of a show, and I'd never really experienced that before, and how like there's a lot of still like figuring out to do while you're also trying to make the thing that you're making. It was a fascinating time for sure, and it came right off the heels of regular show, which was like, so it's just like this like big sudden momentum shift, especially since I'd never worked on a different project. But yeah, so Close Enough, and then Infinity Train, which was amazing, obviously. Big, I mean, Owen was such a great, he's a friend of mine, but he was a great boss. It's a great series. And then I think I went to summer camp where I directed on summer camp. That was the first time I'd done something other than boards. And that was a great learning experience. Julia Pott is a sweetheart who I love to death. Her and Cole Sanchez were the two sort of leads of that show, and they were both just so kind. And I have nothing but stupidly fond memories of working on that show. Truly just like a love fest of kind and like kind people and really collaborative and like I don't know if I would like I don't know what the general reception of the show was. I want to say it's a deeply underrated show. I think summer camp is so emotionally deep and sweet and like just there is a depth to that show that I think I hope that it gets recognized at some point for what it really is, because I think it is like a truly, truly special, like, um, project, I guess is how I would put it. Um, Again, there were times when I was like crying and working on it, trying to put episodes together before the deadline, but that's everything I've ever worked on. Then what else did I work on? That and oh, and then I went straight from that to Shape Island. I was the head writer on Shape Island, on Apple. And I mean, again, speaking of um shows, I have them also tattooed on me. I have the shapes. Um, Mac Barnett and John Klassen, just two of the sweetest, nicest guys to ever live. They were so supportive of me. I love that. That might be the thing I'm the most proud of personally in my animation career, just because it's the first time I had sort of oversight over like a team and like um was kind of in charge of some stuff, and was insanely stressful, and I was not sure that I would be able to do it. And then uh I genuinely could not be happier with how that came out. Um, and then I worked on the Among Us show, which I can finally talk about because it's out. I mean, it's been finished for like 2 years. Um, Again, an Owen Dennis production, and holy cow, it's so good. That one's crazy because like Among Us had become such a memeified thing over time. Like the audience is young gamers, and they had just taken it and like fried it, right? Like it's like I think the cultural idea of Among Us is so just like encrusted with internet stuff all over it that there were probably 9 million ways to make a really terrible version of that show. And I've said it a million times, but Owen found I think honestly, the one way to make it really, really good. Like Owen made the one version of Among Us that is just genuinely a brilliant, funny, real show where I think like a lot of people's instinct on that project would have been to take it and turn it into the joke, like the Amogus meme or what, like a million things that they could have done with it. They could have hired streamers to do all the voices. They could have just done so many things that would have like seemed like the right idea at the time, but I don't think would have actually behooved making a good show. I even suggested to Owen at one point, because I think there was like when it was announced that they were making it, people were like, "Oh, who should they have to do the voices? Like this streamer or that streamer or whatever." And Owen's not really like Owen doesn't watch streamers. He's not really familiar with that stuff. And I remember being like, "Look, if you're gonna hire a streamer to do a voice, you should get German985 to do just one voice because he's really funny." I don't know if you know who that is. He's like I don't watch a lot of streamers, but he's like the one guy that I follow that I'm like, oh, this guy's genuinely funny. He would do a good job. And and Owen was like, just shut up. Like, don't stop talking to me about streamers. I'm not like it was just great because even I was like, yeah, let's like lean into the joke a little bit. And Owen was like, no, I'm making a murder mystery in space, and it's gonna be funny. Like, I don't think Owen even so much as looked at the like broader silliness of that show. But then it came out and people love it. I'm so happy. Like uh I couldn't be more excited with the reception of that show, especially. Probably very tricky to get right. Um and to kind of nail it the way that I think he did, the team did. Um what is very difficult. And then did I do anything else in between that and regular show? No, I think that's it. And now I'm back now. And then the JG and I had lunch, and he talked to me a little bit about the idea for the lost tapes. And I think like I mean it might have been a year later, uh he got the green light and we went to work, which was crazy.
Well, just before we go further on the lost tapes, I do just want to mention about Among Us. That I mean, I kind of stopped playing Among Us like 5 years ago,
You and a lot of other people, I think.
and then I remember seeing like a headline like, "Oh, they're making a series," and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna suck." And then I saw, "Oh, Owen Dennis is doing it." I was like, "Okay, that's gonna be awesome." Uh, and then it's a shame because we interviewed Toby Jones, I think at the time. This is coming out, will have been like a month ago, but we interviewed him literally a few days before like it was just dropped onto Paramount Plus. So we didn't get to talk to Toby about Among Us, which could have been great because he was like, I can't talk about that, unfortunately.
It's great. It's genuinely good. I remember just like as soon as I started reading the scripts, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I mean, knowing Owen and like Maddie Carapel, knowing I'm good friends with both of them, but I also know that they're both fucking geniuses, right? So like, I was not afraid of it not being good, but it was more just there's a lot of opportunity to run into roadblocks with just the reception of the show. The fact that it is a little past when the game was at its height, obviously. And but I do remember sitting down to like board I worked on the pilot. I did the second half of the pilot. Um, and just sitting down and reading the script, I was like, oh, I'm not this is great. Like this is I was laughing out loud at the script, which I rarely do for anything like that. And yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything but positive. It is funny that the so much of the reaction has been, "How is this show good?" Which makes me laugh. Like kind of similar to what you just described, right? Like people are like, "Come on, that Among Us is a TV," and then you watch it, and it's so genuinely great that it's like, yeah, I hope they get their moment back. I would love to see that because, but it is funny to see like, similarly like you would think Among Us might feel a little niche at this point, and I like had this thought that it might get released and kind of just sort of exist over in the corner. But I've seen a lot of people talking about it. Like I feel like it actually had its own little like cultural moment, which was certainly no guarantee. Making, any kind of video game property into a show is like a tricky thing just on its own. But yeah, I'm so happy with how it's been received. People seem to really get like what we were trying to do, which is awesome. Um, and it's like even it's like emotionally affecting. It's like the last couple of episodes have some real emotional, like nice beats. So yeah.
Well, let's shift on to the lost tapes. So obviously you've said how you came back. Obviously you've been working with Maddie, who we have also spoken to.
I saw her clip about how I was late to my first day. Yeah.
I'm just here and I'm just like, oh wow, it's time for me to like ingratiate myself to these people who have all known each other for forever and they have no idea who I am. I'm just like a random guy. And I was just like waiting for Ryan to show. We share an office. I was like waiting for him to show up, waiting for him to show up. He's just like not showing up. Eventually JG comes and he's just like, oh dude, welcome to the show, yada yada. I remember my first day on Camp Laszlo, whatever. Super great. JG's the best, by the way. And yeah, Ryan's just still not showing up. So I'm like sitting at lunch. And then Toby looks at his phone and he just kind of chuckles and he's like, Ryan just sent me a text asking me what the address of the office is.
To be clear, I'm not upset that I thought that was very funny because it's so true. It is insanely true. Like that's just Maddie's and my relationship is essentially defined by that preview is the way that we interact with each other. So
I'm skimming through the interviews, just like anything that's funny or anything that's kind of sweet. And then
yeah.
I was just like, this works. I'm putting it in.
Yeah, well, that makes me laugh because like at the time Maddie didn't know me, but Toby knew me very well, right? Like Toby's the one who like I think I texted him being like, "Where am I going? How do I get to my job?" Uh but to further elucidate that, the reality is simply that I'm a crazy night owl and boarding has not for me generally been a job where my employers have cared about when I show up to work as long as I get my stuff done. Thank God. I cannot believe how lucky I am to have a job that is deadline based. As someone who goes to bed at 4 in the morning and wakes up at noon quite consistently. Um, so that's probably what happened. I probably simply slept in. And also it's the first day and I know everybody. I was like, I've talked about this a little bit, but like going to the lost tapes, I wasn't sure if it would feel this way, but I've described it as like kind of putting on an old comfortable sweater because like so much of the crew were people I already knew, was friends with, was very comfortable with, which is not a scenario you get very often with a new job, right? Like normally you go in and you're nervous and you're on your best behavior the whole time and you're really like, you want to go in and make a good impression and be like you're the best little worker man you can be. And but with this, it was like I it is funny that Maddie is there probably kind of stressing out because I'm not there yet, which I do apologize to her for. But at the same time, I was thinking like it's the first day. There's not going to be anything to even do. No one's going to get mad at me. And so I'll show up, with enough time to say hi and sort of like get back into the groove of things. But like um Maddie and I have talked about this a little bit, like because I've got I've been in the industry especially in the like TV animation industry for like 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, something like that. Um, and she's a little less experienced in that way, and I'm a little older than her. And we talk about all the time that the only thing I've like taught her, quote unquote, is like to relax. Is like not, you don't have to be like insanely stressed out all the time to get your job done or like, to do good work. Um, and especially on this crew. The regular show crew is so just like nice and chill and like it truly is like the vibe is immaculate. So I do think like probably if there was anything I was like giving her pointers on, it was just like, oh, you're good. Stop worrying.
We'll talk a bit about the actual episodes that you've done for the series. Obviously, starting off with Skip's Luau, which, as I've previously mentioned to Maddie, must have been a little intimidating with this being the first time you see the majority of the characters after like 10 years.
Yeah.
So just like, what was it like boarding for that episode?
Oh man. It was interesting. Like I hadn't drawn Mordecai or Rigby, at least not consistently, for 10 years. We were encouraged on that first board to work on post-its, just to like, I think it was kind of, JG was just happy to see like, uh, that vibe kind of come back. So we both worked on post-its, which was crazy. Um, I definitely remember it took me a little while to get back into the groove. Like when you work on a show for a long time, you develop these sort of shorthand versions of the characters because you're not drawing everything perfectly on model every frame. Certainly, when you're working on boards, you're trying to work fast. And so I definitely remember sitting down and being like, how the hell? It was a really alien feeling to sit down and like it definitely felt like if like you remember how to ride a bike, but if you haven't done it for a really long time, you do still have to kind of get your balance back. And so I remember sitting down and just being like, oh shit, like Rigby, he's kind of like a little rectangle, I guess. And I'm like, like really like sitting and like trying to practice. Um, and it's like the writing style was not the same as as like certainly the last couple projects I worked on. And so again, I had to like sort of get my brain back into regular show mode. Um, I think and working with a new partner is interesting. Um, I mean, Maddie and I became friends essentially instantly, which was really thank God for Maddie. But I had worked with Minty Lewis for like the vast majority of my time on regular show. And I mean, again, I can't say enough nice things about Mint either, but yeah, just Maddie and I just got along essentially instantly, which is great because like that's one of those things where if you don't quite mesh with your board partner, you're in a room with them every day of your life for a good while. And if it's like a tricky thing to navigate that relationship, it can be it can add stress to the process, but luckily Maddie is just such a fucking goofball and just like so funny. And I think we've talked about how we feel like we're essentially like siblings from different parents. Like she's not a real ginger, but she's an honorary one. And yeah, we just kind of got along like brother and sister kind of like in the first week that we were working together. So that really took a lot of the, if there's anything I was stressed about, I guess, going into like start on the show again, it was just like, oh, how will I work with my new partner, and like what will the vibe be? What will the kind of like back and forth be? Are we going to want to write together? Are we going to have the same sense of humor? And it was just like instantly just such a, oh, thank the Lord, like this is going to be so easy. And now we're like best friends. So it honestly, I could never say enough kind things about Maddie. But yeah, I think overall I would say it was a pretty comfortable transition from whatever I had been doing into this. Like it came back pretty quick, and it became like a similarly joyous sort of experience, much like the first time around. Which can I say is just so like lucky. I thank my lucky stars every day that you know, I've ended up in situations like this with where I get to work with people I love, and no one is, like screaming in my face or like, you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's like a favorite part that I boarded of Skip's Luau. I do think I have memories of trying to get back into the swing of things, certainly in the series. There's a sequence in near the end of the episode where this is a funny thing, especially working on paper, this was crazy. But there's a scene where Skips orders pineapples from like Hawaii, and the guy surfs in, and it's like this like this long pan of a guy like surfing over a wave and like into the barrel and then through. And there's a photo. I'll try and find it, and maybe I'll send it to you if you want to like post it with this stuff. But it's like Sean Sellis was in the meeting for the pitch, and
Maddie
like,
beat you to it.
oh, never mind. Of course, so Maddie beat me to it. So there you have it. That's how notes can go sometimes, where they're like, here, let me just. So there's this page with post-its coming off of the page. It's like a whole extra like, and that's all just to show one guy surfing into screen. Like, so I remember that, and I remember laughing really hard at just like how complicated, because I'm sure I drew it like crap the first time for my like dumb pitch, and just like getting like 500 drawings on one piece of loose leaf paper to like really get it exactly right. Um, but otherwise, I mean, the stuff I really remember about that episode is I was pretty comfortable with regular shows, so a lot of my thoughts about the episode were like, how can we make this comfortable for Maddie to pitch her first episode? A really funny thing is like Maddie's so hilarious because she's so confident. Like she's so different than, especially than me. Like when I first started boarding, I boarded with Drace, Drace Slough, and he was such a kind first board partner, and he kind of showed me the ropes. And I don't think I did like an action sequence for a couple of episodes at least, right? Like I kind of like I think a pretty common thing is they'll put a newer person with a veteran, and then the vet will do the more complex stuff, and the newer person kind of does a lot of like, they'll do some of the stuff that's funny, but it's still just characters mostly like sitting around, so you can do simpler staging and you can kind of like ease yourself in. And in this episode I was like, I remember we just sat down and I was like, well, okay, I mean, I think usually we kind of do it this way, and I can take this if you want. And she's like, nah, I'll do that. Like there's a scene where, they're flying a jet and they're shooting at Mordecai and Rigby, and they're doing loop de loops, and they're flying under a bridge, and there's all this like insanely complicated stuff. And she's like, no, that sounds fun. I'll do that. And I was like, okay, I mean, I guess if you want it, you can have it. And I remember just like she boarded it out, and like we hadn't pitched it yet, and she was showing me it, and I was just like, yeah, that's fucking great. Like you're gonna nail it. Um, I also just remember laughing at Maddie's earlier like first iterations of drawing characters because she has such a different drawing style than the regular show style, or she did at the time especially. And some of them show up like there's a few shots in the first episode of like or in Skip's Luau of like Doghouse especially where he's got like 100 little tiny teeth. And I just remember seeing those drawings and laughing and just being like, she'd be like, should I change this? And I was like, no, pitch it exactly like that. If they want you to change it, they'll change it, but otherwise it's really funny. It doesn't quite, it's not exactly like how we normally do stuff, but it had like it had its own energy that I was like, no, you definitely have to like at least pitch those drawings and see what they say. And they are in the episode, like they made it all the way to the final cut. So, uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, really, she kind of seamlessly made the transition to TV like that. So. Um, yeah, she killed it. Um, yeah, that's mostly what I remember. It's just like there were a few jokes that I snuck into the first pitch that didn't make it to the episode that I'm sad about. And I did originally in that episode when they go to find the pudding, there was like a montage of them eating all the pudding. So like it wasn't just like they find it and they have the tops. It was like they're like chugging pudding essentially, and so it was just a few shots of that. And I did a joke that was funny to me that I knew would never make it into the episode where it's literally just I drew it frame for frame from a Popeye like an old like 1930s or whatever Popeye episode where he would take the can of spinach and he would squish it and it would go up and he'd eat it and then his arms would get big and Mordecai did that. He squeezed a pudding cup and it went up and it went into his mouth. And then when he flexed, it had the words free hovercraft on his biceps, which is like absolute nonsense. I don't know what I was thinking, but I do remember like before I even pitched the joke, I remember I was like pitching through the episode and I was like, and this will get cut, but then Mordecai does this and blah blah blah. And JG instantly was like, yeah, we're cutting that. I always love doing things that I know we'll get like a little laugh from folks while I'm pitching, but I also know we'll never ever make it into the episode. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's it for that one that I can recall.
You just completely reminded me of something that I don't know why I didn't write it down when you mentioned working with Drace at the beginning. I think you might have boarded one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. That being one I've spoken about a lot of times, that I'm always singing its praises, is Guitar of Rock.
That was my first episode ever. That's the first episode I ever did.
I feel like everything just keeps escalating and keeps getting worse and worse. I love the idea that like Benson's kind of in the slacker role this time, and Mordecai like a mentor. I think that's a really cool concept and dynamic that I don't know. I could watch that episode on repeat for like I have been watching that episode on repeat for the last 12 years since it
Uh,
came out.
I mean, yeah, I attribute obviously any of the good storytelling stuff in that episode was Drace just because he knew the show so well and he just Drace is so good at being efficient. He knows how to just keep something moving forward and like escalating just like you said. Um and he was truly teaching me well, so Drace, we used to write the whole episode in one day. We would get the outline on Monday. We'd write the whole episode, and then we would pitch it the next Monday, which is actually pretty fast. Like that's a really fast turnaround for a board. Um, but he was just again like he's so efficient, and like he would just fly through it. Um, I, as a little tidbit, uh, that was my very first regular show board I ever did, and my first board for television I ever did. I'm pretty sure I did it in Photoshop, which I don't even remember like what my process was because that sounds insane when I say it. But I did the entire board with all of the action going from right to left, which if you know TV in boarding, that is absolutely not how cartoons ever work. Everything always goes left to right, like you're reading. I don't know if you've talked about this on this before, but like a general rule in cartoons or in TV in general is if you're going towards your goal and towards the end of the episode, you're going left to right. And if something is going wrong and you're going back to do something like to fix something or anything like that. You're going right to left. And I had every panel going right to left, and I had to individually flip every single drawing I did for the whole board before I handed it in. But that's the episode also. It has the joke. Dre's put this in. It's still one of my favorite jokes ever, where the guy asks the bouncer to borrow his pen, and he just picks him up and throws him into the ceiling where he explodes.
Oi, mate, can I borrow your pen?
I remember when we were writing it, I pitched that when he picked him up and threw him up, he would get stuck on a stalactite. Like he would be like impaled on it, and just like for the rest of the episode, he'd be up there, and you'd cut back to him and he'd be complaining. But it's funnier to just have him explode. And also, like, as I've said, I think I tweeted this a while back, but like in regular show, you're allowed to kill anybody as long as they explode. Seems to be one of the rules. There, I mean, we've killed people in lots of different ways, but it seems to be the easiest way to get something passed, to get something through, is to just make them blow up for no reason. And that's one of those classic examples that I love so much. But yeah, what do I remember about that? I remember putting some gags in that got cut because I think like that was a learning experience of keeping things simple. Because I think an instinct, especially when you're first starting a job like that, is you want to prove that you're funny. I wanted to prove that I was a funny person, so I put lots of extra jokes into the episode, into the board. And the reality is there's only 11 minutes. And so like when the episode came out, a lot of stuff I had put into that had gotten cut. And I remember being like that being a learning moment of like, oh yeah, right, of course. Like all these like extra long gags and runners and things that I put in, there's not enough time for that. So you have to keep things really, really simple. But yeah. Um, but a great experience for sure. Like working with Trace, and he really did just like teach me how to board. So yeah.
Well, back onto the Lost Tapes. So basically, the same question I asked for Skip's Luau, but for Coffee Shop Wars.
What do I remember about Coffee Shop Wars? I mean, first of all, I was very excited just to get an Eileen and Margaret episode. Any episode that's like that turns itself on its head a little bit and isn't just like following Mordecai and Rigby around is always really exciting. And I think like our biggest goal in that episode honestly was just to like make sure it still had the same vibe as a normal regular show episode, like to give Eileen and Margaret the same opportunity to be dumb and silly, and like, like essentially just to be like, what if regular show was just about these two characters? Um and we lampshade that a little bit at the end when Rigby's like, "Oh, I wish I got to do stuff like that." Um but man, what do I remember? Oh, so one thing, I mean, it's just a little fun fact. Originally, um and this is another thing about boarding, where you have to be willing to kind of like uh sacrifice things that you might have put a lot of time into, let's say. There's a whole sequence when Eileen and Margaret go to the other world where they're talking to the breakfast goddesses. Um they originally, when they're talking about how the logs are going to take over all food, there is a sequence that was like, it was like a whole homage to Terminator 2, where there's where she's watching the nuclear bomb go off and it's like blowing everything up. But it was that, except it was all like restaurants, and like, there's a scene where like the bomb goes off and it like wipes out this road, and there was like an ice cream truck, and it was like this soup. And there's like the shot of her watching the in the movie, she's sitting at a chain link fence and she's watching kids on a playground. And in the scene that got cut, it was like a bunch of kids and they were on the playground and they were like on a seesaw, but they were all eating these disgusting food logs. And it was like this thing that took me a long time to port. It was very complex. And then we just didn't have time for it. So the whole thing is cut. But somewhere out in the universe is a version of that episode that like has like a 4 minute long Terminator 2 reference that I'm very proud of, that no one will ever get to see. Um and that's just part of the job. It makes you want to cry sometimes. But I mean, I think who did the voice of Valencia in the final? Was it Patty Harrison?
Yeah.
Yeah, did an amazing job. But I do remember when Maddie was pitching the board, she did that character so well. I was like, I was arguing that they should let her voice that character. I love Patty Harrison, but Maddie definitely had that character down pat. Um, I remember because I'm older than Maddie when we were designing the sort of hip um workers at the other coffee shop. Um, I had to like ask her what they should be wearing. So like trying to differentiate them and give them like their own styles and stuff. I was like, Maddie, what do like younger people like what kind of shoes do like 20-year-olds wear? And she had to kind of like teach me what like the younger hip sort of like foodie would wear. Um, I really like that episode. I'm really proud of that. And again, I'll point out again, this is our second episode. Maddie did the friggin' action scene of that one too. She like was so not afraid to just do like to give herself like an absolutely insane amount of work. Although I do think she ended up kind of pulling an all-nighter doing that. Not to out her, but yeah, I love that episode. I think it's great. And again, so fun to get to do like an episode with the girls in it. And sideline Mordecai and Rigby a little bit.
Also, a little fun fact about that episode: it's the first time in the Lost Tapes that we see anybody die.
Is it the guy the guy that gets blown up by the food in the action sequence, or does someone else die as well? I know someone gets blown up by like a
And
hot
then there's
chicken
the
sandwich.
industrial dishwasher.
Oh, I killed them. Oh, dude, that I forgot that scene is in that episode. That was there's always jokes that you're like, this might go well. Like, I think this is funny. This will get by, and like people will chuckle at this one. And then there's other jokes that you're like, I love this joke, and if they cut it, I'm going to want to die. And I didn't think I'd get away with that joke, truly, just because he dies in a very like weirdly graphic way, and I wasn't sure that that would be okay. Like, I really was taking a gamble just making him like a sparkly skeleton. And that ended up getting like clipped and turned like I was seeing that for a while on the internet, and I was like, I'm so glad they kept that. I do think originally he didn't in my board, I don't think he yelled not the industrial dishwasher. I think they just threw him in there and killed him. But I understand why they added it. They might have needed a little bit of extra context, but yeah, I love that. That was one of those ones where I wrote that and I was laughing to myself. Like, yeah, I'm funny. I guess I'm pretty funny.
It was fun because, as I'm sure you will have seen, when the episodes were coming out, we were doing quotes from every episode,
Hmm.
which was basically, when you boil it down, me picking 7 jokes from each episode, which made me laugh loudest.
Yeah.
Um, but with that, I remember when we got to that point specifically, because we were including an image, I was like, a single image isn't going to do this justice. So I screenshot it frame by frame to make like a mini GIF out of it.
Well, thank you for that. You're getting the word out. Um, yeah, I like that. I like that. That was such a stupid gag. And I remember it's that classic thing, right, where the villain kills one of their henchmen, like to show that they're truly evil. And I remember being like sitting there and just being like, there's got to be some funny way that she can murder one of her like chefs. But it took me a little while to be like, what in a like there's a lot of things in a kitchen that could kill somebody, but they're not funny. Like, and then I remembered my experience. I worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant for one single day before I quit. And it had one of those industrial dishwashers, and I remember just thinking it was terrifying. Like it was like a million degrees and just like this, like yeah. And I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. What if they toss him in there? And but the whole time thinking they'll probably cut this or they'll turn this into something more tame. And no, we got away with it, which is great. Yeah.
Well, the most recent episode of yours to come out was, of course, Stilt Walkers, which I've said it before, I'll say it again, is probably my new favorite. It's my favorite of the new series. Um, I was very proud of the sushi picture that we posted.
Dude, can I just I think honestly that is my favorite episode of the show ever. I think it's my favorite regular show episode. We'd sit down and just read through the outline together with Sean and JG. And we were crying with laughter just reading the outline. Okay, the stilt community stuff had us dying, obviously, because it's so stupid. But even just like the ultra specificity of Rigby wanting this picture that looks like sushi, like how insanely specific and just incredibly stupid that concept was. Like we weren't, I don't even think I was laughing at it as like a thing that Rigby was doing. I was laughing because I was like, who had an experience in their life where they thought they needed to put this into an episode, and like where could this possibly have come from, like as an inspiration for something to put into a TV show? It's so insanely stupid, and it just felt so like everything in that episode feels like it comes out of left field in the craziest way, and yet there's like a genuine emotional like heart to that episode that I also kind of can't believe we got away with. Because like I mean Maddie and I were calling it the child abuse sequence, essentially, where Rigby and his dad are interacting, and his dad is just such a piece of shit to him. And we were laughing. And again, it's one of those things where we're pitching it and we're laughing and we think this is hilarious. And the whole time we're like, they're not gonna let us do that though. Like his dad is being so just overtly cruel to Rigby here that it's like it goes beyond cartoony and becomes upsetting. But that's so funny. And I remember seeing like so many like things online about just people being like, holy crap, dude. Like that is so like his dad is so evil. Um so I can't believe we got that in there. But then to have that sequence in an episode that has like a fish on stilts and an eagle on stilts and a bear on stilts and a guy, Uncle Sam trying to scam people for is it $12,000? Like the, the episode is so dumb and so silly, and yet it still emotionally works and is like one of the more revealing episodes about Rigby, I think. And the fact that those two things overlap to me is I truly insane. But to this day, I've never I've never laughed so hard just like reading through the idea of an episode. I was peeing my pants. I was like uh it was crazy. And yeah, so I boarded the action sequence of that. I'm really proud of it. Um uh I mean, drawing characters fighting on stilts, I truly had no idea how I was going to do that. I was terrified to even start. But I'm really happy with how it ended up. Um, I still have a very fond memory of just again, one of those times when you're writing and you're like like, you're not always as a writer, you're rarely, I would say, really happy with stuff that you're writing. You're always a little worried about whether something is working or not working. But I do remember the little rant that Uncle Sam gives where he's like, "Oh, is it a scam to make everyone give me $12,000? Is it a scam to, make a place where we can touch the animals anywhere we want?" Like whatever his rant is there, I was writing that and I remember being like knowing for a fact that people would like it, which is rare. I don't always feel like that. But it was like the the episode gave us the materials, the raw materials to make it really stupid and really funny. And sometimes you just get like it feels like you're just given a piece of cake. Like you're just like it's just perfect. You just get to that makes no sense, but you know what I mean. Like it's just they've handed you something that you can then like really have fun and make the dumbest, funniest version of it. Um yeah, Maddie's whole sequence with like Rigby and Uncle Sam bonding, and it's just like everything is stilt based. He's got the long pencil. He's doing long division, which is like a joke I'm not even sure people necessarily kind of instantly got. Um, the fish on stilts makes me laugh every single time. Yeah. I think it's my favorite episode. I genuinely think it's like I used to put for different reasons. I think one of my other favorite episodes I had ever worked on was and of course I'm not going to be able to remember the damn name of it, but the one where Rigby is back in high school and goes caving, and Eileen I always loved doing Rigby and Eileen stories, and that I really was very happy with how that episode came out, but I think this might be my new favorite. Yeah. A joy, like truly just a joy to work on the entire time. Uh, the other thing I remember, and this is not during the outline, but when we were pitching, when we did our crew pitch, and Maddie was pitching through the sequence where there's the fish on stilts and the eagle on stilts and all this stuff. She was pitching and crying with laughter while she was pitching, which I've never seen that in my life. I've like it's very rare that when you're pitching, you're in a place where you can also be like, because there's nerves, there's adrenaline, there's a lot of other stuff. It's pretty rare that you're also in a place where you can be like dying with laughter while you're pitching your entire thing. Um, yeah, yeah. It's an all-timer. It's a 10 out of 10, in my opinion, for sure. And one last thing, I still remember also when Maddie first showed me the drawing of Uncle Sam coming through the bush, the very first time we meet Uncle Sam, and it's just a bush and his face pushing through the bushes. Uh, Howling, just howling, dying, like being like, this is going to be the funniest shit anyone has ever seen in their life. Um, and I believe that to this day. So yeah.
On a slightly darker note within the episode, the whole thing about like Rigby's child abuse is,
It's a much darker note.
yeah, is that in the original series we had seen that to put it very lightly, his dad wasn't very nice to him, but we had never seen it like, we didn't know that that was like him when Rigby was a baby, like straight out the womb.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think the earliest we saw like Rigby was maybe like 12, but seeing that like, oh, Rigby's
Yeah.
dealt with this since he was born.
We set up Rigby as his whole character in that episode. Essentially, we're like, it is funny, like seeing Rigby as a character now makes so much sense to me. He like I completely understand. Like I always thought he was just kind of a jerk or whatever, but like now I know where all of this like bad behavior comes from, and of course, like part of it is that, and then part of it is just trying to write the most over the top, like what's the meanest thing his dad could do, but it made me laugh more than any other pitch I'd ever seen. But the scene where when Rigby goes to prom, takes Eileen to prom and steals his dad's car. I remember Toby pitching the part where his dad runs into the gym and is running around the prom yelling like, "Where's Rigby? He's my adult son that goes here. Where's Rigby? He's my son. Where's my son?" And he's in his underpants. I remember that being the funniest, like that's the hardest I'd ever laughed watching a pitch in my whole life. And I still think that scene is so insanely funny. Uh so just shout out to Toby. I think pitched it, but it was a Toby and Owen board. But yeah.
So I think the key basically for the funniest pictures is put Rigby's dad in there.
I guess so. I guess that's true. Just have Rigby, which is funny because he didn't he wasn't always a jerk. I don't remember exactly when he turned, but I do remember he shows up early in the season or in the series, and he's like just the regular dad. Although I've seen people argue that it's because he's on his best behavior because it's Thanksgiving and he knows people are there, so he's acting like a nice guy, which I'm not sure that the writers had considered that. But
Someone recently was like, and I don't know how this would work timeline wise, but someone was like, maybe that's Rigby's mom finally uh got rid of Rigby's normal dad. Then she fell in love with a new raccoon, and then that
who looks the
raccoon
exact same.
tragically died. So she went back to Sherm. And it was like,
That's good.
okay.
I mean, honestly, we maybe that's another. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I like that a lot.
I want to touch on just like some favorites. I mean, I'm not going to ask what your favorite episode is that you've ever boarded because I feel like you have just kind of answered that. But what are some of your favorite episodes from other people on the show, whether it be the Lost Tapes or the original series?
So many, so many of them are so amazing. I'm just trying to think like what did I like latch onto to try and like really like who did I steal from, especially when I was trying to like be funny. Um, I remember watching Toby and Owen again. I will mention Toby and Owen again. They pitched the Baby Ducks like the anime special. And I think if I remember correctly, that was an episode that was meant to be an 11 minute that they just put so much fucking work into and they did so much with it. I remember walking into the room and the whole so normally we would put our boards up on these uh white poster board things. And an average episode was 4 or 5 boards long. So that was about, ooh, how many pages? Like maybe 100 to 125 pages of 4 panels each. And that's like 5 or 6 of those was pretty average, which is still a little long. And that would take up maybe like a third of the wall in the pitch room. And I remember walking in and that episode wrapped around the entire, literally the whole room. It like filled every wall. Um, and sorry, my dog is going insane in the background. Can you see that? She's being very weird. But I remember just watching like especially like the action sequence that they did and how funny. I think the thing I always admired especially about like Toby and Owen boards is that and this is something I don't feel like I'm as good at is they always manage to make every single bit of the episode really funny. I find that like I'll sometimes sort of write something. I'll have funny bits, and then once I get into my action, I'll maybe like I go action brain a little bit where I'm just like trying to make it cool. But anytime I'd watched one of their pitches, I always just thought they were so good at keeping even their action really, really funny and never sort of like um never backing off how comedic everything was. And I'm still not as good at that, but I always really admire that, especially in that episode, once it starts going into like all the transformations and all the insane, like, speaking of escalation, just the way that that episode just like never stops ramping up and it just becomes more and more like insane. Um, I remember being like inspired and stunned by that. Um, Let me think. I mean, honestly, like everybody else too, the first season has a lot of really fun, really like goofy. Uh, there's a vibe that JG has that's so fun to watch. Like a lot of the little like Mordecai and Rigby's raps and the things that they were doing a little more often back then than they do now, I think. The the space and the air that episodes had in the first couple seasons was like weirdly comforting. Does that make sense? Like an episode would have like 4 things happen in it, but and there would be a ton of space and like an air. And I think that just like TV just doesn't, nothing on TV really has air and space right now. Um, and I always like really admired that like there was like these slower like moments that were so funny at the same. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Do you know, does that like, yeah. Um, it's interesting to me because I think a lot of the stuff that I really truly like cherish and love in my memories of the show is mostly just working on it, to be honest with you. Like when I think of episodes, I don't think about sitting and watching them. Like I have to be honest, it's mostly like I remember sitting in a pitch and just thinking like, holy shit, that was so funny. Like the people I'm working with are so hilarious. Like, you'd have like, and everybody was so good at different things. Like, like Benton would pitch something and you're just like, This is a man who breathes regular. Like this guy is the voice of like just seeing the different strengths that everybody had and the way that everyone approached the show to make it the same thing, but everyone had like such different voices. It for me, it's a lot more about like the overall sort of experience than like specific episodes where like um that stick in my mind. That being said, I also love anything with Eileen in it. Always made me. I think about speaking of an episode with space. Actually, this is one of my favorite episodes. The one where the bear escapes from the zoo. I think it was a Sean and I want to say Cat. I think.
Deathbed.
Um, yeah, that episode was so like that episode's funny to me because it's like it's really funny, but it's also very like it's just a very human episode. It's got that real like there's space for like emotion and for like the characters to feel real. And I think I really like that. And I always liked giving like again, I took inspiration from episodes like that where I could to try to make the characters like Rigby and Eileen trying to make them feel like real people who like really cared about each other. Um but yeah, it's that's a genuinely tough question because I like everything. Like I'm truly a fan of the show, but so much of my love for the show stems more from like standing in a room with my peers. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And kind of closing off on favorites, outside of anything you've already mentioned, what would you say are some of your favorite memories of working on the show, whether it's, again, original series or new series?
Lunch, going to lunch with everybody. As crazy. I mean, like it's I remember showing up and I was quite intimidated and I was nervous. And obviously, I wanted everyone to like me. I never worked in that kind of atmosphere before. I'd never worked in an office in my life. And then just to like, every day, the boarders would go out somewhere in Burbank and we would all just sit around and we would take a long lunch because no one was going to yell at us for it. And we would sit and do bits with each other for 2 hours every day and just laugh. And it was like just the experience of being surrounded by, and still, like in the new season two, like the experience of just being peers with such funny and nice and chill people. Because that's the other thing is like, not every funny person is also chill. Is not all like funny people are not always like a great hang necessarily, but everyone on our crew was just always such a joy to just like spend time with. Like we've done road trips together. We've done all these things where like we want to spend time with each other outside of work. We're friends. Like I would say some of my best friends in the world are people that I just like would go, have a sandwich with at noon, in Burbank. And I remember bits. I remember like specifics of just like sitting around a table, just like coming up with the dumbest thing in the world and just laughing. So probably that. Honestly, it was just uh the camaraderie of it was a truly special thing because I've worked on other productions where everyone was nice and I've never had a particularly bad experience on a production, but like I do think that it was a bit of a once in a lifetime sort of meeting of a certain like JG, I guess, just has a way of finding people who make sense together in that kind of way, like socially as well as comedically or anything else. And yeah, I love my like I love the regular show crew and I cherish them and their friendships is the way that I would put it, as like corny as that is. So probably that. Um, Getting a laugh when you're pitching is always like a magical feeling. It's always scary until you get your first laugh, and then it's like you can kind of relax and ease in. But uh, yeah, I'd have to put just the human part of it above the work part of it. Um, yeah, that's what I remember the most anyway, certainly.
I feel every single time I'm doing an interview now, I'm more and more tempted that at the end of all this, to just put out a compilation of storyboard artists talking about lunch.
You should. Yeah, I'm guessing that's not an uncommon answer.
Well, obviously, every storyboard artist kind of brings a bit of themselves to the show.
Mhm.
So I'd like to ask, what is it that you think you bring to the series?
Oh man, that's such a good question. That is complicated. Let me think of a genuinely like a sincere answer where I'm not making fun of myself. Because I think as a board artist, I think I'm a good board artist, but I don't think I'm like a savant. I don't think I'm like the greatest at action. I don't think I'm the greatest like actual storyboard. Like I've called myself a meat and potatoes board artist a lot of the time. Like, which is what I mean. Regular show is largely like that's kind of what they teach you. Is like regular show is actually quite a simple show in terms of the boarding style of it. It's very flat. Characters are here and here and here. Like it's quite simple until the action sequences where you're allowed to play and get a lot more sort of that's like if I had a quality that is like the reason someone would hire me for it, it's not necessarily that. I think I really like digging into the thing that like carries an episode from the first thing and wraps it around to the end and makes it feel like a complete meaningful thing even in an episode that's like very silly. I was actually just talking the other day, I was talking to someone yesterday about like that my favorite seasons of The Simpsons are like early seasons when it had more to do with the family. And I even in regular show, which is like, you're allowed to be pretty not cynical, but like you can get dark and you can get it's not a saccharine show for sure. But I do think that's something I love about storytelling and trying to find those beats and those moments is something that I think I'm pretty good at, which is I think why I always liked working on Rigby and Eileen episodes. I really liked finding the way to make those two characters make sense together and find those like warm sort of like loving moments in an episode that's like largely very silly and goofy. So I love doing that stuff. And then if I'm being kind of honest, I think my vibe is okay. I think I try to be a nice person and I try to be a good hang and be inviting. And I think that that's one of the reasons I get hired onto other things is because of that. Um I think I have a strength for finding the core and building you know, a nice, a complete episode. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
who or what would you say are some of your biggest inspirations for doing the work that you do?
I mean, I have a million different places that I sort of draw from when I'm trying to make anything. I mean, my peers for one thing, just like the people that are working around me at any given moment, like especially on regular show, everyone is so funny and so smart that there is a certain thing when you're working on an episode where you just know you have to get your work up to a certain standard and a certain quality or else and it's not even like anything bad would happen. It's more just like there's the inspiration to get your work up to a certain standard so that you feel like you're not some weird imposter in this group of amazingly funny people. Like, I can't even, I won't even, like everyone on our crew was so hilarious that it's like Owen and I have similar voices in some ways. Maddie and I are different, but I think our styles work very well together. Minty is a very like always had a very like dry sense of humor, and I think that we worked really well together in that like I don't know if I'm on the drier or the wetter end of comedy, but I definitely just remember having the specific thought of like, oh, I need to like, especially early in regular show, just being like, I need to up my game. Like going in and seeing people pitching stuff and just how funny and like creative everyone was. I was like, oh my God, like the fear, it struck fear in my heart in the best way, obviously, but like where it's like, holy shit, like if I don't really work at this, like I'm not going to feel like I belong. And whether they thought that or not, it has nothing to do with how other people are looking. It was just my own internal thing. But I definitely remember like watching a couple pitches and just being like, I better pick up my act and like really try to figure this out. Aside from that, it's like, inspirations are again like this Matt Groening. I remember reading that like Life in Hell when I was like too young to even understand it. Honestly, a lot of comics inspired me. Calvin and Hobbes was a huge inspiration for me. So, Bill Watterson, um, he's so funny and so full of heart, and he also uh he didn't what's the word? He didn't capitulate to like capitalism, like in the same way that so many people do. He ended the comic when he felt like he needed to end it. He never sold merch. He didn't like commercialize the shit out of his product. Um, he cared about it and he wanted it to be good. And I've always really heavily looked up to him as an artist for that. And it still made him rich, which is that's nice. Um I mean, comics people I came up with, like Casey Green, always made me laugh a lot when I was coming up. Keith Beaton was a big inspiration for me. These are web comics people. I don't know who's even like remotely familiar with that general sort of like sphere, but I came up with them and I always loved them and their work. Yeah, I have a billion inspirations, but they come and go. But in general, it's the fear of not measuring up to the people around me, I think is probably my biggest inspiration. So yeah.
Well, if there's anybody out there watching or listening to this who wants to work in the animation industry, whether it be as a storyboard artist or anything else, what sort of advice would you want to give to them?
Oh man. I mean, that's tough right now. The industry's in a funny little place, so that's not the easiest. Like, I don't think that there's any one path that's like, hey, just go to Cal Arts and I don't think there's any particular thing that is like the silver bullet for getting in anywhere. But I think there's probably two things. I think one is to, and this is both good and bad. This kind of sucks in a way, but it also I think is just simply the reality is like if you have an interest in creating, you need to create. And that means you have to create stuff on your own. You have to make something that people can find. It like especially if you're trying to get work in animation, I think like, you need your portfolio. You need to show that you can do the job, but at the same time, I think the biggest, fattest thing you can do for your own good is to make something that inspires you and is interesting to your like that you feel in here in your core. Um, and you need to just make the thing that you want to see or some version of the thing that you want to see and put it somewhere where people can find it. Um, because I think that in general, when people are trying to find that person that they want to work with, they're looking for people who are technically proficient, but I think it's a lot of the time they're also looking for that person who's got, the drive and the want to make something and to just be creative. And so like if you have a project and you don't feel ready to make it, or you don't feel like you're quite at the place like maybe proficiency wise or whatever that you're not quite ready, I think you should just kind of start. You should just stop thinking too hard about making the thing you want to make, and I think you should just make the kind of like the bad version of it, because it won't be as bad as you think, and you should if I was a person right now trying to like sort of break in, I think it would be make something that is in your voice and is your idea of a funny or a beautiful or a heartfelt thing. And even if you don't finish it, or it's just examples of it, starting, I guess that's it. It's like you need to start something and put it out where people can find it, because otherwise, you know, uh, if you're not easy to find, or you're not, if it doesn't feel like you're sort of, it's harder to latch on to people like that. Uh, and then the second part of that, I think, would just be to try and weasel your way into a group of people that is doing similar things. I say that in a cynical way, but I don't actually mean that. What I mean is make friends with people who like so much of I guess getting in anywhere ever is luck and knowing people. And I don't mean that in a cynical way. I mean the way that people are, if you're working on something and someone asks you to recommend somebody else, you're going to recommend someone that you like hanging out with. And you're going to recommend someone that you know and have spent time with and can vouch for. And so the more that you can, you know, the bigger and better your community is, the more opportunity you have, just in general. And that can be tough, but I think it's like once you have one job in the industry, the likelihood that the next person that hires you is your friend is very high, I think. Uh, People like to hire their friends. They like to hire people that they trust and that they know personally and that they know won't be a jerk. I mean, my biggest rule is don't be a jerk. That would be the very number one rule. But yeah. So like if you're making comics, try going to a convention and table at a convention and meet people. Some of the best decisions I made were like going to TCAF when I was making comics and just like building my community and hanging out, and the stuff that's outside of your work but involves your peers is the stuff that I think probably is the most likely thing to get you in the door anywhere. Um, and I truly don't mean that in a cynical, like, go network and be like a little sleazebag or whatever. It's really just like, you know, it's nice to make friends, and if you can do that and do your job well, um, you have a such a leg up over people who are just kind of like off in the ether. Uh, Unfortunately, like in a way, it's kind of unfortunate. I'm sure there are so many really talented people who are not being found. Um, so I guess my advice is like be findable. Both of those kind of do come down to being findable, right? Like if you make something and it's out visible, you're findable. If you've made something, even if it's small, but it's the thing you want to be making and it's out there on the internet, you are now findable. Your name is attached to it. If someone finds it and they like it, you have become a findable element. And if you know people, you're very findable. And so those are two things that are not easy to do, but I think that they're the best kind of paths you can look down towards a career or towards work. That was a long and winding way of saying just like make sure people can see you, but still I think that's true.
Make things.
Make things, yeah, I mean honestly, but the thing is it's hard to make things, right? Like saying make things is so easy, but the fear of making things is huge. And so you really do have to get over the terrifying fear and pressure of making something bad. Like you have to make your bad stuff for a long time before you start making stuff that is good. And if I think one of the biggest things that holds any artist back in any scenario is just waiting until you think you're going to do the perfect version of your thing. and that's only ever going to kill you. It's never gonna like look at how many shows and things are out there that get made that are bad. Like you don't have to be a genius to work. Like if that makes sense. Yeah, very roundabout, but still. Make your bad thing. Make your thing. Because it's never going to be as bad as you think it might be. Uh um and even just the act of making it gets you that much closer to making a thing that really works. So, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we are starting to head towards the end of the interview. But before I let you go, I'd just like to ask, obviously, outside of the Lost Tapes, if there's anything that's come out recently or that's coming up that you've been working on that you'd like to promote?
Oh, no, I don't think so, actually. I think Among Us was the thing that has been sitting on the shelf for a little bit, and it's out. So go watch that. It's really funny. I boarded a bunch of cool stuff in that. I did a sequence of someone making pizza that I'm really, really proud of. So um highly recommend that. Other than that, no, I actually like I'm not even really particularly on social media at this point, or at least not anything I am gonna like promote for people to go pay attention to. Just please watch regular show as it comes out because I'm really, really proud of it and I'm so happy that it exists. Um, my friend Maddie is putting out just put out a short it's called Chips, and I think you should go watch that. My friend Toby put out a movie a couple years ago called AJ Goes to the Dog Park, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Um, yeah, I think that's about it.
Well, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. Nice chatting. I feel like I just gave you a horrible answer for that, but good luck editing that down to anything. But I, yeah.
Well, if there's anything, and I have to just very quickly apologize. I don't know if you noticed, but I was just trying so hard not to laugh when your dog was in the
Yeah.
background.
No, you can laugh. She was going crazy. I don't know what she was even doing. We call that, it's very corny, but we call that when she gets her weirdies and she just starts rolling around and like acting like a lunatic for no reason. She's a Frenchie and she's just a little, just in general, she's a little weirdo. Her name is Lavender. Um,
I was
yeah.
just like I was listening very attentively to what you were saying. The next thing is I saw like this dancing dog in the corner, and I was
Here's what
like,
we
oh,
do.
and I started just looking at her, and then the next thing is you mentioned it, and I was like, okay,
So while I'm talking, if you put this out, just have me turn into like static noise and just zoom in on my dog, and then you can ignore me through that last answer because it's so terrible.
Thank you once again to Ryan Pequin for joining us for this interview. Next time, we will be speaking to the one and only voice of Margaret, Janie Hedda Tompkins. Here's a preview.
I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, these are really fun episodes. Like, they're very, I feel like they've deepened some of the relationships, and, you know, there's places to go with the characters that maybe that they didn't have before. Like Margaret and Eileen get some fun stuff, you know? So I'm like, I was pleased and excited to see that Margaret got more stuff with Eileen and, you know, the gang and everything.